Hi, today I'd like to present a simplified uh, view of Lifo Fifo and weighted average from Chapter 6. We'll be using exercise 622 on page 407 for an example. I've reproduced the table in exercise 622. Notice it's a little bit different because I've separated the price per unit from the cost per unit for the sales and purchases. This is important because what we're trying to find in this problem is the cost of goods sold. That's one of the primary things we're interested in. Students often get confused between prices, like this sale of 12 units for $90 price, versus the purchase of 10 units on May 11th for $78 cost. So I've listed the items that have happened during the month. The easy way, rather than the kind of complex tables that are dealt with in the book, which are fine, I just want to give an alternate explanation of what's going on. The way I like to think about it is I like to focus on the purchases. So what I do is I list the purchases, including the initial inventory. I've done that down here. Notice I have the beginning inventory on May the 1st, which is 16 units costing $65 for a total of 1,040. That's just the 16 times the 65. On May 11th, I purchased 10 units at 78 for a total cost of 780. And then on May 26th, I purchased 14 units at 80 for a total cost of 1,120. Altogether, I bought 40 units at a total cost of 2,940 and an average cost equaling 2,940 divided by 40. Now, notice I cannot just take an average of the three costs. Watch what happens when I do. I get a different average cost. Why do I get a different average cost? Because I'm not weighting that cost by the number of units. Here I'm taking the total dollar amount, 2940, and dividing it by the total units. That is always the correct way to do this. Notice in our example, we've sold 12 units on May 23rd and 15 units on May 29th. In both cases, the price per unit is 90. So no matter which method I use, the total revenue will be the same. 12 units times $90, that's May 23rd, plus 15 units times $90, that's May 29th. Total revenue in all cases will be 2,430. That's the only thing, by the way, that I'm using this price number for. Another thing to observe is I have a total of 40 units available for sale. Also, I'm selling 27 units during the month. So under all three methods, I'm going to have 13 units left. The question is, what is the cost of those 13 units? The different methods will give a different answer because of their different assumptions. Another very important thing to observe is that this total goods available for sale, 2,940, what's going to happen to that? That 2,940 is the total amount we've spent on inventory during the month. So that amount is either going to be sold and therefore end up in cost of goods sold, or it's going to end up in our ending inventory. So let's look at FIFO. Under FIFO, we're selling 27 units, but under FIFO, we're assuming we're selling from the beginning units or the very earliest units, and only then selling from the later units. So what this means is that the first units I sell under FIFO are going to be these 16. The next units I sell are going to be these 10 here for May 11th, and only then do I sell more. Notice after I sell these two, I've sold 26 units. I only have one left to sell, so I'll sell one from the May 26th purchase. What that means is cost of goods sold under FIFO is the 16 times 65 from May 1 plus the 10 units at 78 from May 11th plus one more unit at 80 from May 26. 16 plus 10 plus 1 equals 27, which is the total number of units I've sold during the month. Under FIFO, the total cost of goods sold is $1,900. We use the same logic to compute ending inventory. Ending inventory consists of the items we haven't sold. Well, that's the 13 units from this very last purchase. So under FIFO, ending inventory consists of the most recent units. Cost of goods sold consists of the oldest units. Gross profit is equal to our revenue, $2,340, minus our cost of goods sold of $1,900. That's $530. So that's FIFO. Lifo has the opposite assumption. Cost of goods sold is assumed to come from the most recent units first. Again, I have to accumulate to 27 units. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sell the 14 units from May 26th first. Then I'm going to sell the 10 units from May 11th second. And only then, notice I've sold 24 units up to this point. I'm going to sell my remaining 3 to get 27 units out of the May 1st. So we've got 14 units at 80, plus 10 at 78, plus 3 at 65. So cost of goods sold under LIFO is $2,095. Using the same logic, ending inventory under LIFO is just the remaining 13 units from the very first purchase at $65, $845. Gross profit under LIFO is equal to our total revenue minus our cost of goods sold, and we get $335. Notice cost of goods sold under LIFO is higher. Cost of goods sold under FIFO is lower. Ending inventory under LIFO is lower. Ending inventory under FIFO is higher. Gross profit under LIFO is lower. Gross profit under FIFO is higher. It makes sense because prices are rising. FIFO assumes you're selling from the low-cost stuff when prices are rising, because that's the earliest purchases. Since cost of goods sold is lower under FIFO, gross profit will be higher. Also, since cost of goods sold plus ending inventory always equals goods available for sale, necessarily, if cost of goods sold is higher under LIFO, ending inventory will be lower and vice versa when prices are rising. Now, to compute cost of goods sold and ending inventory under weighted average, it's a little bit more complicated. And the rule with weighted average is you recalculate the weighted average costs only after each purchase, not after each sale. So let's start from the beginning. I start with 16 units at $65 for a total cost of $1,040. Then on May 11th, I buy 10 units at 78 for a total cost of $780. Now, I have a total cost now of $1,820. That's the sum of the 1,040 and 780. I've purchased a total number of units of 26. So now I calculate the cost per unit. The cost per unit is going to be 1820 divided by 26. Notice that cost per unit is $70. When I sell the next 12 units, I use this cost as my cost of the units sold. So when I sell 12, I'm selling them at $70. Notice, that is not the $90 price. The cost is something I have to calculate. So 12 times 70 is $840. So my total cost of that sale is $840. Meaning I have 14 units at $70 for a total of $980 left. On May 26, I purchased 14 units more. That gives me 28. They cost $80 for a total of $1,120. So my total new cost is $980 plus $1,120 is $2,100. And now my new weighted average cost is $2,100 divided by 28, which equals $75 per unit. So when I sell 15 units on May 29th, I sell them at $75. That gives me $1,125. So my ending inventory is 28 minus 15 is 13. 2,100 minus 1,125 is 975. I have 13 units at $75 for a total of $1,975. Now I have enough information to calculate my cost of goods sold. My cost of goods sold is simply the cost of my two sales, $840 plus $1,125. That's $1,965. My ending inventory, it was already given. That's the $975 remaining. My gross profit is going to be equal to my total revenue minus my cost of goods sold of $1,965, $465. Notice, cost of goods sold for FIFO is lower. Cost of goods sold for LIFO is higher, and weighted average is in between. Ending inventory under FIFO is higher. Ending inventory under LIFO is lower, and weighted average is somewhere in between. So gross profit under FIFO is higher, under LIFO is lower, and weighted average will be in between. This is always the pattern when costs are rising. When costs are falling, FIFO and LIFO switch, but weighted average will always be in between. Remember, in each case, the sum of these two numbers, regardless of the method, will always equal our goods available for sale, 2,940. So I hope this gives you a little bit more clarity about an easy way to approach calculating cost of goods sold and ending inventory under FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average.